Hi, my name's Jessica, and thanks for watching today. Before we get started, we wanted to fill you in on our church. Here at Grace, we have a mission and a purpose. Our goal is to help people discover truth, decide on Jesus, demonstrate change, and deploy for others. If you're looking for a church, we would love for you to come and be a part of what God is doing here at Grace. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. We would also like to invite you to one of our Sunday morning services. Check out ohiograce.com for a list of campuses and service times in your area. We have a great time gathering for music, hanging out, and learning about who God is and how that affects our lives. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you here next week at Grace.
What's up, church? How you guys doing this morning? All right, good. Don't know if you noticed, but today's just a good day. All right, got the sun shining, the birds are chirping, and college football is back. All right, so that's always good. How about those Buckeyes yesterday? That was a pretty good game. All right, I think I'm going to enjoy this season. Okay, that's all I got to say, and I'm looking forward to it. So, hey, this morning, we are going to be wrapping up our letter to a young pastor named Timothy, who was probably in his late 20s when Paul, the guy writing this, when he was writing this letter, and Timothy is in a huge Roman city called Ephesus, and he's pastoring a new church there. And Paul and Timothy, they had met years before. He used to go around and he would travel from town to town to town and city to city to city telling people about the great news of what Jesus has done for everybody. And one point he travels to a smaller town called Lystra, and in Lystra he meets this guy named Timothy, and they hit it off. Right? Tim, he puts his faith in Jesus. He gets saved. Everything's going good. It sure sounds like from the little that we know about Timothy that he may not have had a real great relationship with his dad, and it sounds like he was raised by his mom and his grandma. And so Paul takes Timothy under his wing, and he gets to be like the dad that Timothy never had. And he shows him how to live for God like a man. And so Paul starts off his letter. Think about 6 weeks ago when we started this. Paul starts off his letter and he says, Timothy, you are a pastor, you're young, I get that's going to cause some issues like that. That's just harder in general. But what I need you to do as the pastor of this church is I need you to teach your church. All right, I need you to teach the church. I need you to teach the church God's words. Teach them the Bible, because the Bible is what keeps us straight and narrow as a church family. Otherwise, we get all like weird, okay? We see churches do that kind of stuff all the time. The Bible keeps us straight. And so Paul, it's actually not just at the beginning. He actually tells him and he reminds him over and over and over and over again throughout the entire letter. Even today, he's going to do that several times. And so he says, you need to teach the church, and then he reminds Timothy of like just some practical stuff when it comes to leading a church. And he's like, this is the structure and the order of a church family. He gives qualifications for pastors, elders, and deacons. Deacons are just people who serve. He gives instructions like, hey, people in church, like we should dress modestly. Okay, and we should live a quiet life. What does that mean? That means don't stir up trouble in the people in the community around you, whether that's at home, anywhere, even on Facebook, okay? Like, don't type that comment or whatever. It probably doesn't need to be typed, that type of thing. And then he tells men, he says, men need to step up and lead in the church, and men and women are to work together as equals. And then last week, we talked about how Paul says, this thing that we do here on Sunday morning, right, these people that we have sitting here, he says, this thing that is called the church, he says, Timothy, I want you to view them with the correct mindset of this is your family. All right, meaning here at Grace, here this morning, all right, we can look around, we did this last week, okay, but we are a family. That's how God has described the church. We are here to do life together, and what Paul mentions last week is we are here to take care of each other. Now, how do we do that? If you remember, right, because we always remember everything that I say. Okay, all right, I'll refresh a little bit. He says, the way that you take care of each other as a church family, he gives us several practical things. He says, number one, you need to correct each other when they're wrong. All right, like that happens sometimes, but you need to do that in a very respectful way. He says, those of you who have parents or grandparents still alive in here, he says you need to take care of them when they're old. That's what that looks like. That's on you, not the government, not necessarily the church either. And then he says the church, you guys need to take care of the older women in the church if they qualify and if they actually really need help. And you need to take care of your pastors and your elders. As above all, he kind of grabs Timothy's attention. He says, Timothy, what I want you to do as the leader is you need to take care of the church. You need to guard them. You need to keep them keep them in line with the Bible and how God tells us to do things in truth, and don't let anybody kind of veer off. Now, as we get to Paul's final words here, I want you to remember that, again, Paul truly cares for Timothy, but it's not just Timothy that Paul truly cares for, which he views as a son, but he also really cares for this church in Ephesus. I mean, Paul had spent 3 years with these people. And so as Paul's wrapping up this letter, he means what he says. He's not just like barking out orders. No. He passionately cares, and he passionately wants Timothy and the church to understand these things. It's almost like he kind of, he grabs this guy that he views as a son, Timothy, and it's like he grabs him by the shoulder. He's like, listen to me. All right, you shake your kid, maybe you shouldn't do that. Definitely not babies and stuff like that. I don't know why I just said that. But, when I think of shaking people, I think of babies. So that's not good, all right? But anyway, not that never mind. Okay. But parents, you at least know what this looks like, where you grab your kid by the shoulders, like, listen to me. You really care about what you're about to say. He's like, listen here. He says this, teach and encourage these things. Here's that word teach again. He's like, you need to teach them and encourage them of these things. Now, this word encourage, if you remember from last week, this is not just a, wow, you got great hair today. Well, that's very brave. Like that type of thing. That's not what this word encourage means. That's what we view it. That's not how Paul writes it. Right? This word is way more forceful than that. This word is you are pushing them to do the right thing. He's saying, so teach them this, teach them how God wants us to live our life, and then encourage them towards doing the right thing with kind of a forceful, intense push. He says, and if anyone teaches false doctrine, right, even the people that you like, this word anyone, it means, even your friends, even the people that you look up to, right, those people too. If any of them teaches false doctrine and does not agree with the sound teaching of Jesus, meaning if anyone disagrees with Jesus and teaches something else, meaning they teach what they feel is right rather than what Jesus actually says is right. By the way, people all around us do this today. Even churches all around us do this today. They ignore the truth of the Bible and instead they teach what feels good to them, but it ain't truth. Paul's like, look, okay, Timothy, teach the Bible. Not just, teach the Bible, not just the things that people want to hear. We get that the Bible is offensive to all of us, right? Right? It's offensive. It's constantly pointing out the things where we are wrong. That's what the Bible does. It's funny because earlier this week, someone who doesn't go to church here, someone in town, they showed me a Facebook page where these people are just mad about our church and the things that we're doing, okay? And I'll be honest, I looked them up and I was like, oh, it kind of was interesting. I'm like, oh, interesting. That's not true, and that is true, but you shouldn't be, that type of thing. And some of the comments is that pastor, he said this, and that is so offensive to all these people. And I read that, and I'm just like, well, duh. Yeah, that's just how it goes. Bingo, you got it. The Bible is offensive. I stand up here and I say offensive things all the time. I call you guys messed up, jacked up, horrible, terrible people, all the time. And you guys are like, wow, man, I just love this church so much. I'm just saying, you guys are weird, but that's cool. Right? We're so used to being offended here. That's fine. No, Paul's saying those people, the people who teach false doctrine, those people who do not agree with Jesus, and the teaching and the promises of godliness that Jesus, he tells us, or the teaching that promotes godliness, the stuff that Jesus is saying, hey, this is how you live your life. You want to live the life the way that I have designed you to live this way. He's saying those people who are against that, man, they're conceited and they understand nothing. It's funny because usually the people who are, very boisterous and very what, I'm against this and I don't think Jesus actually said that, that type of thing, they think they know everything. And Paul's like, no, they know nothing. Like, they're not getting it. But instead, they have an unhealthy interest in disputes and arguments over just like, I don't know, I think Paul's like words. Like, people who just argue about words. It's like stupid stuff that just doesn't matter that much. Paul's saying here, he's saying there's going to be a bunch of church people who have an unhealthy obsession with wanting to argue over words. And it's not just words, but their whole belief system is wrong anyway. And all they want to do is talk about it, argue about it, and debate and just all this stuff. And Paul's just like, it's like they're obsessed with words, all right? I don't know if you've met people like this where even like they might know a lot about the Bible and stuff like that, which is good in a sense of, but they just argue about these things like, what does the word elect mean? I think it means this. I don't think it means that. Like, were you elect before you were elect or always elect or what kind of thing? It's that type of thing. And Paul's just like, man, this is not healthy. You're wasting your time arguing about this stuff. It's not good for any church to argue and split hairs over little words. All this does is cause division. And Paul says, from this comes envy and quarreling and fighting with each other and slander, talking bad about each other and evil suspicions. He says, in constant disagreement among people whose minds are depraved and deprived of truth anyway, so they don't even have truth in them because they think all this other stuff. They think they know better than truth, and who imagine that godliness is a way to material gain. See, Paul's saying the real reason why they're doing this is because they think that they are being godly in their own way, and they think that will get them a bunch of stuff in life. They think that will help promote them in life. They think it'll help them accomplish their goals or maybe even make them wealthy or look good to everybody else around them. A lot of these people, they think that they kind of flirt with this whole, religion or Jesus, believing in Jesus or whatever. They think that all their problems will just go away. I mean, there's even teachers who teach this kind of stuff. You ever, flip on the TV and you see those, televangelists or, some of, not all of them, but some of the pastors on TV, and they're just kind of going on and on. And what they say, hey, if you give your life to Jesus, Jesus promised you, they always have the same accent, like health and wealth and happiness. He'll give you all this stuff. Your life's going to be so good. He's going to heal you if you're sick. Like, he's going to do all this stuff. And it's all about what you can get. It's all about you. The only problem with that thinking is the whole Bible. That's the problem. See, Jesus never promises to make us rich. He never promises that we're going to have all the things that we want. He does promise that he's going to take care of us and that we will have the things that we need. I mean, even think of Jesus' life. Jesus wasn't rich. He's like the main guy, of our movement. He was God. Not even he was rich living here. But contrary to popular belief, we have the tendency to put ourselves at the center of our world. That's what we do. And we view God as just another way to accomplish our goals. And we view God as he's only in our life to do what we tell him to do. But God doesn't take orders from you. He doesn't take orders from me. He doesn't exist to serve you. He doesn't exist to give us all of our wants and all of our desires. By the way, that wouldn't be good for us anyway. You ever meet that kid whose parents gave them everything they wanted? Ain't good, right? That kid's got problems. He ends up working at the B&V someplace, that type of thing when he grows up. It's not good. They're just always angry, that type of thing. By the way, I had to say this last service, but the B&V here in Tiffin is way different than everywhere else I've ever been to. They're cheery, they're fast, and above all, they're efficient, okay? Not the way a B&V is supposed to run. I'm just saying, in general. And I've never seen such a thing, so good for them. But everywhere else, that's the kind of places where they go. See, Paul's saying, it's not about gaining stuff in life anyway. That's not really what life is about. These people, they think they're godly, and they're trying to use God to collect more stuff for themselves. They're trying to use God to advance themselves, and there's nothing to gain that way. But instead, he says, godliness with contentment is great gain. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I read this word contentment, and I'm just like, ugh. You know what I mean? It's just I feel like I'm content. I know what that means. It probably means more than what, in general. But Think about it. Can you imagine being content no matter the circumstance? Can you imagine that? And again, I think most of us view ourselves as generally content with life. Yeah, I got a good life. I got things, there's things I would change, but everything's decently good. No, but think about this. Can you imagine being content no matter what circumstance you're going through? No matter if you're healthy or not. No matter if you have a bunch of money or you have nothing. No matter the weather outside or if your team wins or loses or whether the gas prices are whatever they are or who's president or the price of eggs. I don't know, the things that we all complain about. Paul's saying be content in life or being content in life. That's really where it's at, right? That, he's saying, is life. That's what matters. That, he says, is actually gain. He says, he's about to get right up in our business here. He says, for we brought nothing into this world. He's just reminding us this. I don't know about you, but I watched all three of my kids be born, and not one of them came out with cash, okay? They just did it. I wish they did. That'd be great, but they didn't. They didn't have a bunch of cool stuff when they were born into this world. What'd they have? Nothing. What'd you have when you were born? Nothing, right? We have nothing. We brought nothing here. And he's just reminding us of that. He says, and we can take nothing with us. Meaning when we die, and you will, he says, we don't get to take all of our stuff with us. Now, we all understand that, right? Yeah, our minds understand it. Our hearts struggle with it a little bit. And that's kind of hard for us to even admit. Now, I've been a part of a lot of funerals, and I've never seen a hearse like pulling a U-Haul trailer behind it, with a bunch of cool stuff with them. Like, hey, this is Fred, and his stuff. That's not what happens. See, sometimes I have to remind you of what happiness to your beloved stuff, what happens to that stuff. And you've heard this before, but think about it. Your kids are going to do a bunch of dumb stuff with your best stuff. You get that, right? Like, think of your best stuff, like your most treasured possessions. It's like you got your best stuff. Your kids are going to do a bunch of stuff with that when you're gone. All right, they're going to take all your cool stuff and they're going to ruin it anyway. Like that's just what they do. Like someday, some guy, man, that you don't even know, he's going to have your golf clubs and he won't even truly appreciate the clubs that he now owns because he got them at a big discount. It's just true. And what should really tick you off is he's going to be better than you with your own stuff. It's messed up how it works, right? It's cruel. And ladies, those pants that you had to have, those pants are going to be sold at Goodwill, and someday somebody's going to look better than you in your own used pants. It's just true. See, someday your kids are going to sell your house for less than it's worth just to move on from you. And someday, all your expensive tools, they're going to be sold in a garage sale, and your guns, they're going to be covered in dust sitting in somebody else's closet, and your dishes, and your china, those things that you really care about, nobody cares about that stuff anyway. I'm sorry, that probably just goes straight to the trash. I don't know. But someday, a bunch of your good stuff, check this out. This is hard for us to remember. Someday, a bunch of your good stuff, no one is even going to want. And on top of that, your own offspring that you birthed into this world is going to throw away some of your good stuff after they make fun of you for having it in the first place. It's just what happens. We can't take our stuff with us. But that's okay. Because we as Christians, he says, if we have just food and clothing, we should be content. You're like, wait, what? Just food and clothing? He's like, yeah, there's that word again. Meaning if you got your small fry and oversized hoodie, that's all you need. You're a Christian. You're like, I'm following God. That's good. That's what he's saying. He says, but those who want to be rich, anybody in here want to be rich? Anybody? Raise your hand. Yeah. Okay, we got a few. That's good. Me and 10 people. The rest of you guys are complete liars. You want to be rich? Let me rephrase that. How many of you wouldn't mind being rich? Okay, it's a little less harsh, I guess. Those who want to be rich describes 99% of the people in this room. It describes all of us. That's just true. And so when we read that sentence, we should all be thinking the same thing, which is like, uh-oh. All right, so let me just practice this real quick. I'm just going to count to 3, and I just want you to say, uh-oh. Okay? Can you do that? I'm trying here. All right. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, uh-oh. He's talking about you. This is not good. He says, but those like us, including myself, who want to be rich, what we have the tendency to do is we fall into temptation, which is, he says, it's all just a big trap. He's saying it's just a trap. Meaning when we are driven by desire to have more and more and more, there is a bunch of temptations that come along with it. See, we think to ourselves, we're like, man, if I could just have that, that thing, if I could just have that, whatever that is for you, we're like, man, then I'll be happy. I'll be good. We work our tails off just to get that one thing, that 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, all right, or the kitchen countertops, or that car, or that truck, or that relationship, or maybe it's so you can land that job, or maybe for you, might be like me, I don't know. All right, it's land. All right, if I could just have those acres with an old barn, maybe a shop on there as well, that'd be really good. Like if I could just have that, then I'd be happy. Then I'd be good. But you guys are good church people, and you guys don't want to be rich anyway because only like 6 of you guys raised your hand. And so you guys would never think that way, right? No, we never think about that kind of stuff. And so because it's not you guys, because you guys are just such good people, let's talk about the guy at work, right? Like let's talk about the people that you work with. You know anybody who steals? Maybe it's just time. You know anybody who cheats? You know anybody who thinks they're better than everybody else because they have more? You know anybody who feels entitled? You ever notice greedy people out there? Like they're there. Not us again because we're here in church and we're all perfect, right? I heard somewhere that the richest people aren't those who have the most, which is what we think. The richest people are those who need the least. This is interesting. Right? The richest people aren't those who have the most. The richest people are those who need the least. Paul's saying, man, we're running after money and more and more and more, and we think we need this, we need that, we need all these things. He's like, man, it is a trap, and it wants to kill you. All right, that's what it is. He says it's a trap, and many foolish and harmful desires come along with it, which plunge people into ruin and destruction. I don't know about you, but as far as my life goes, like I'm not going for like ruin and destruction. Okay, like that's not my goal. Not about that. I don't want that for my life. He says, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Now, this is one of the most misquoted verses in all the Bible. What we hear is money is the root of all evil. Or money is the root of evil. You heard that before? Right? That's not what he says at all. He says, for the love of money. Right? When we desire money, and it's all, and not just money, but stuff, possessions, whatever it might be, even could be like a relationship or something like that, right? The love for that and the desire and everything we do is it kind of wraps around that. It's the center of our little world. He says, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. And by craving it, which is a great word for it, man, we just crave that thing. We got to have that thing. He says, he has seen some wander away from the faith and it's pierced themselves with many griefs. Meaning, here, we're like in a dangerous spot. Because every single one of us in this room, we're all rich. We're all rich. By world standards. I saw a stat that if your household makes $35,000 a year, you're in the top 10% richest people of the world. Right? Like, think about it. If you and your husband or wife make like $17,000 a year a piece, I mean, you have made it to the top. Congratulations. Like you are there. That's what, by world standards, I mean, you've made it. See, in our culture, what our problem is, we're kind of in a dangerous spot in the sense of we are not so poor that we have to trust God for our next meal and our basic needs. There's probably nobody in this room that we are that poor that we're like, I don't know if I'm going to eat today, so God, you're going to have to provide if that doesn't happen. We're not that poor, but we're also not so wealthy that we've tried everything out there that there is to try, and we have learned the hard way that nothing's going to satisfy unless it's a relationship with him. We're kind of in that middle ground. We make just enough money to pursue the next thing that we think will make us happy and safe. And Jesus is like, man, you cannot serve both God and money. Hey, he says that once, so if that's like a problem to you, email him, okay, not me. Money, what Jesus says, and what Paul is concerned here with Timothy and the church, is he's saying money seems to be the number one competitor for our heart. Now, does God hate money? No. He gave it to you. Right? He gave it to you. What I'm saying is, the book says you better watch how you use it because we have the tendency to serve it. The problem isn't having money, it's loving it and serving it. See, we think it will make all of our problems go away, but when we view it wrong, what we end up doing is we fall into the trap that just brings, what does he say? Grief. It's funny because we think if we could just get that thing, or if we could just get some money together, that'll make our problems go away. But instead, Paul's like, it's actually the opposite. It works the opposite way. No, a lot of times when we get that thing or we get that money, it actually just brings grief. I mean, think about it. You ever know anybody who got into a fight with someone about money? Does that ever happen? Right? We ever been a part of one of those where they got into some big fight and they got some money, which is okay, so you got the money, but then you lost a friend out of it? Is that worth it? Or you ever know anybody who got in a big fight with their family members, or maybe it's their brothers and sisters, or whoever, and now they got some money, like it worked out for them, like they fought for the money and they got the money, but now they don't talk to their family anymore? Man, it brings grief, Paul's saying. See, those are the people who have fallen into the trap. And that includes people like us. We have fallen into that at different times in our life. He says, but you. So you got people who fall into this trap of, I'm going to gather all this stuff, and this stuff's going to serve me, and it's going to serve me well. He says, but you. But me. He says, but you, man of God, that's who we're supposed to be. Flee from these things. Right, when this word flee right here is not some like typical run, okay? You go on a jog or you run errands. Right? That's not what this means. This is like a flee. This is like run as if your life depends on it type run. Probably none of us have ever had to run that way before, but that's what it looks like. We've never had to do it maybe ourselves, but we've all seen it like on TV. You ever watch like Animal Planet? You got that, like the cheetah chasing the gazelle type thing. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, all right. When the gazelle realizes, because you've seen this before, when the gazelle realizes that the cheetah is coming for it, it just doesn't, it doesn't like just prance around and think to itself like, oh, I can resist that. You know what I mean? It doesn't just kind of hang out and go, oh, not that big of a deal. I can run later. One little cheetah like this, it's just not that big of a deal to me. The cheetah's so forgiving, It won't get me. No, what's it do? The thing takes off for its life, right? Like the gazelle flees as fast as it can. It runs for its life. And even then it still gets caught, like most of the time. You know what I mean? That is not how we view sin. And that is our problem. The way we view sin is we view it as kind of like a line in the sand, and we're like, okay, that line's not that dangerous. We get up as close as we can. We're like, all right, here I am. I'm pretty close. And then once in a while we cross over the line, but it's just not that big of a deal to us because we're like, God's forgiving. He'll forgive me anyway, and so who really cares? Paul's like, no. You are missing it. Paul's like, you gotta view sin as something that wants to kill you because it does. So you gotta run from it. But don't just run away with all of your heart, just randomly. He's like, you gotta run to something. He says, you need to run from these things. He says, and you need to run to things like righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness, all the things that Jesus taught us as Christians we are supposed to be. He says in order to do that, you have to fight You have to fight. It ain't easy. It's not just a quick decision. You're like, oh, I'm good. No, man, it's a fight. You got to fight the good fight of faith. Paul's just like, man, look, if you want to make it to the end of life, if you want to make it to the end of life and be able to look back on your life and think, that was a life well spent. And look back and think, that was a life well lived. That's what I want in my life. He's saying it's not enough just to run from every sin out there, right? If you do that, that makes you a good person. The problem is, it's not about just being a good person. He's saying you have to take some urgency and you need to run towards something, and the thing that you need to run towards is Jesus and the way he taught us to do life. And in order to do that, you have to fight. He's trying to get us to understand that life is like a battle. It's constant. I'm just saying, if you're saved, like, you know how that feels because it's a fight within you. You feel it sometimes. There's like one part of you wants to do one thing. The other part of you is like, no, that's wrong. I shouldn't do that. You know, you just got this battle within you. That's the Christian life right there. And so Paul's saying, Timothy, instruct. There we go. He says instruct or teach. It's that word again. Those who are rich. And again, when we read that, I think most of us automatically were like, oh, I could skip this part because I'm not rich. But again, we are rich according to world standards. I've been in places in this world where I'm the rich guy and I have more than anybody else. And then it's funny because I'll get home and I kind of shake that all off, you know? And I go back to comparing myself to the people who have more money than I do. Remember, we are all very rich. And since you are rich materially, wealth-wise, he says you need to be good at it. Instruct those who have money, which is us in here, in the present age, not to be arrogant, or don't set up your hope in the uncertainty of wealth, right? Just because you have money, what you got to resist doing is putting your hope in that money, right? Looking at that bank account or that 401k or retirement or whatever and feeling comfortable because you're like, oh, I'm good. I'm safe. No, that's not reality. And that could go away in an instant. You have no control over that. He's saying, don't put your hope in that, but instead put your hope in God, who richly provides us with all things to enjoy. Meaning, it's not wrong to have stuff and it's not wrong to have money. In fact, God gives you that to enjoy. But think about it. This is how messed up we are. Instead of enjoying the things that he has given us, what we do is we flip it and we put our faith in it. We treat it like a God. He says, so instruct them to do what is good and to be rich in good works and to be generous and willing to share with the people around them when they need to share, storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the coming age, so they may take a hold of what is truly life. Don't you want to truly live? Don't you? I do. Like, don't you want to live a life that's well lived? He's just pointing out, he's saying the difference between Christians and the world, the difference between the way Jesus tells us to live and the world tells us to live, is that we are not to be concerned with temporary comfort like everybody else. We're looking at long-term investment. We look at the future. We look at our life after this life. He's saying that's what's worth investing in. And so here's Paul. As an old man, he's writing at the end of this letter to a young pastor who he cares about a lot, to a group of people in a church that he cares about a lot. People that he viewed as like his own kids. He finishes, he says, Timothy, you need to guard what has been entrusted to you. Guard the truth that God has given you. Guard the church. He says, avoid irreverent and empty speech. Don't argue about words and don't do useless fighting. Like, none of that's worth anything. And contradictions from what is falsely called knowledge. He says, don't do it. By professing it, he's saying some people have departed from the faith. People walk away because of these stupid arguments. He says, so focus in and grace be with you all. And that's it. He just ends it. He ends by saying the Christian life isn't about chasing stuff that doesn't last. And I think God, he waited to the end to focus. This is his main thing, his main warning for Timothy in this church. He's like, watch out for loving stuff. The Christian life is about being content while chasing truth. And that's going to be a fight on the inside that you're going to have to fight. He says, be ready and finish well. Let's pray. God, we thank you for these words and really everything that you've given us, more than we could ever imagine. God, help us to live a life that you have called us to live. Because it's not, we should be doing it just to honor you, but Lord, it's best for us when we do it that way. Lord, you're so good to us. Help us to live our life your way. You know that we need your help. God, help us to start that like today. And too many of us, we've fallen into this trap of chasing after stuff and this and that, all these things that we think will make us happy, and that's just not true. It doesn't work. And it's like we learn this lesson over and over and over again because there's always something just out of our reach that we got to run for. But God, that's not the way. You're the only thing that will satisfy us. Help us to remember that. We need it. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you here next week at Grace.